Today on A&A Diversified, we have our 2008 F350 6.4 diesel engine in the shop. We're going to be selling this truck. Going to be trying to find a buyer for it, but you know, I try to put myself in the buyer's shoes. So there's a few things we want to fix on this truck before we actually sell it to somebody. We've got a leaking O-ring on a radiator hose. Those are common on these engines because there's just O-rings everywhere, and those are very common to leak. So we're going to be doing that. We had a blend door actuator that went out on the cooling air conditioning system. We replaced that yesterday. And then we have the old too much slop in the steering. That's probably going to boil down to we're probably going to replace the steering gearbox on that. You know, it's been a while since we posted a video, so you know, sit back, relax, pop you some corn, get you a drink. It's going to be fun, so stay tuned. Okay, the first sign of, you know, you're staring at a repair issue is when you park the truck and you have something dripping from the truck. It's pretty much dried up now, but it was a wet spot, and so without moving the truck, which will make it easier to trace down exactly where the leak is at, I got up under here and see if I can put your eyes on it. Okay. This is one of the lower heater hoses, and you see it connects right there. It's got an elbow, and then you can kind of see the little snap ring, the little silver colored snap ring on the black elbow. If you watched the other video I've got replacing an O-ring up on the top radiator hose, you know how that snap ring works. So laying under the vehicle looking up, that's this is on the driver's side, lower radiator hose. The lower hose comes down all the way across. By the way, there's O-rings right here also that we may as well replace while we're doing this. And it goes up and goes back in right there. It snaps in. That's the one that's leaking. And it doesn't really look like it right now, but yesterday that was nice and wet. So definitely our culprit. So we'll probably be changing several O-rings on these heater hoses, because once you fix one, the others are just going to go in turn. So that's one repair. So we'll do that. The first step, you guys heard me say it before, I hate draining coolant. That is step one. Okay, you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it 100 times. I hate draining coolant. So, the bottom of these radiators, that's the nut you have to turn. This is where the water's gonna come out. And you see, mine's dirt dauber has mine stopped up, so I'm gonna clean that out with a little tiny screwdriver, and I'm going to attempt to put a piece of hose on that so that water just don't come spraying out everywhere, and I can run this hose down into my handy bucket I have here. That way we can kind of control the mess. That's why I hate draining coolant. Got the coolant drained in the bucket, and you see now why I really hate draining coolant. It's not good to get this stuff on your skin either. So once you drain the radiator, that radiator hose that goes across there, and it's got a joint right there with an O-ring. You'll need to pull that apart, and you have to remember that even though you've drained the radiator, that hose going from side to side is lower than the bottom of your radiator, so it's still full of coolant. I knew this and was trying to pull it apart gently, but you know, once she pops off, it just goes everywhere. You keep hearing me say the clip that holds the hose on, snap ring, clip, whatever you want to call it. This is what it looks like. You pull this out of the connection there, and the hose slides apart. This is like a retainer clip. And when you go to reinstall the hose, you have to put this clip into that hose connection. Put the clip in first before you slide the hose back onto the connection. That way, when you hear it snap in place, you'll know it's where it needs to be. All right, so I got the hose out of the truck. This is the end where it just connects in the middle to the hose that goes to the other side of the engine. This is the end that was leaking. So if you see inside there, you see there's an orange O-ring in there. That's what we're going to be getting out. Sometimes there'll be two O-rings in some of these hoses. This end and the other end here, they only have one O-ring in each end. And there's some, and I'll tell you what that is. If you watch my other video where we replaced the double thermostats that's in these engines, the seals around those thermostats is made up of this right here. Okay, let's make sure there's nothing else surprising in here. That's fine. So you'll need a pick. If you don't have a set of picks, you know, and you're going to be doing any kind of work on engines and stuff, get a set of picks. You can get a pretty cheap set at Harbor Freight. I got these probably 30 years ago, and I don't even remember what brand they were. So it's looking like some more of that stuff there. All right, I want to make sure the groove is nice and cleaned out before we put our new O-ring, because you don't want the new one to start leaking. Then you've got to drain the coolant again. Yeah. All right, looks like that's pretty well. I'm gonna take just make double sure. I'm gonna take a rag here, and I'm just gonna go through that groove a couple times and make sure that there's nothing in there that's gonna interfere with our new O-ring sealing properly. You'll feel some rough places. It's just where the plastic was manufactured. That's okay. So let me get our new O-ring. All right, so the O-ring set that you'll want to buy for these 6.4 engines, and this is the radiator hose O-ring set. It's from Dorman. It's a 926-165 radiator hose O-ring kit. If you've got one of these engines in your vehicle, you may as well go ahead and order that. even if you don't have a leak right now, because trust me, you will. Okay, so we're gonna pop this back in there. There's a groove where we took the orange O-ring out. Just start it, hold it with that hand, and then walk it around with the other, and it'll pop in there for you. Okay, so that's nice and seated in the groove. That's perfect. While we have it out, guess what? You got it. May as well do the other side, because we don't know how long these have been in here and if one's leaking, and that came out so easy. So you do not want to not replace these O-rings. If you do, you'll just be in here later, draining the coolant again, going through all this trouble again. Like I say, wipe it out, clean it out, take your pick, get all the little boogers out of there, whatever they may be. Shouldn't be much, and I ain't finding much of anything but thermostat seal. So run it out one more time just to make sure it's clean. All right, take another one of our O-rings here. And by the way, this kit, they're all the same size but one. You've got one small one, and I believe this is the hose that runs to the, they call it the degas bottle, or I call it the radiator reservoir. I think that's what that's for. I can't remember right offhand, but run this one in there. Try to hold it with one hand, walk it in with the other. Hold your mouth just right, and then they'll pop in there. There we go, that's good. All right, so good news is I took out the thermostat housing, inspected the thermostats. Someone has replaced those recently. They appeared new. There was no missing, rubber gasket around the thermostats there. Someone has replaced those. The ones that are in there are in extremely good condition. The seal's good, so I just reinstalled it. So what we found in the radiator hose was apparently from the previous ones that went bad, and someone has replaced them. So we're not gonna have to do that. So that's $35 that we saved. These are the clips, and I've showed them to you before, but sometimes when you're removing them, especially me, I don't have a great deal of patience, but sometimes you'll spring one of them. You see this one's a little wider than this one. So, just spring it back. Perfect. All right, so installing these in the flange right here, you see these gaps. Nice long gap, shorter gap, shorter gap. You can't really see real well, but what we want to do is, so I'm gonna aim for this one to pop in there, which means the other two should pop in place. And it's just a groove, and you just pop them in just like that. And if you look, get this turned correctly here, you can see the three indentions of the clip protruding there. That's what you want to see, because as we slide this on, the male end, it hits this lip. It's kind of dark in there, but anyway, when you slide this on, it expands these clips. It gets to a groove that these clips will snap in, and then it's secured. So that's why you install the clip first, because once you hear that snap into the groove, it's all set. And let's make sure none of these are too badly sprung. They all look pretty good. So, all right, so let's find some. There's a small slit. There's a small one. Well, those look all about the same, so I'm just gonna pop them in where I can. So same for this one. All right, she pops in. I always inspect and make sure you got the 3 tabs of the clip. It's kind of dark in there, but I can see them all. So as long as those are sticking out, you're good. Now, if your clip is just real loose, like this one's a little loose, you know, don't be afraid to pop it back out. Bring it back. Bring it back. Make it tight, and that way, you know, if you feel more comfortable doing that, then you know, do that. It's not going to hurt a thing. These are little flexible clips, little wire clips. Okay, that sits a lot tighter, so that's good. It's not major. It's just to keep the hose from sliding off. So we got that hose done. We got 2 other clips. Just lay one on top of the other one. Matter of fact, you know, just put a little tension on it so that it'll fit tight. Okay. All right. So we're just gonna. All right. So that one popped in good, and see the 3 ears there. And so let's just pop this one in. All right. You see the 3 ears on that one. All right, so all we got to do now is reinstall these hoses. There's nothing too exciting about it. We just slide them back on where we got them from. Okay, I've got the other hoses connected, and I've saved one so y'all can see. Got a little metal clip in there. On this hose right here, now you have to take a bolt out right here that loosens this. It's all part of the shroud. It holds the power steering fluid reservoir. You got to loosen it because the lip of it is right on top of where that hose needs to go. Thank you, Ford. So position your hose gingerly, and then I'm going to take this screwdriver here so that I can kind of help hold that up. Now there's a tab, can't really see it. There's a tab on the radiator, a male tab, and then there's a female slot on the hose. Just make sure they're lined up so it'll slide on without any problems. And listen for the ring to click. You probably didn't hear it. It did click. See if I can get your eye on it right here. So it did click, and this is the notch I was talking about. This is the radiator. It's a male notch in the radiator and a female notch in the hose. If those are seated together like they are now, and your little silver clip isn't raised up, that means it's seated in the groove it's supposed to. And I heard it click. It wasn't a loud click. It was kind of a soft click, but it clicked. You can always grab hold of this hose, wiggle it, and try to pull it off. If you can't, she's in there. So that's the way I did the other hoses that I reconnected. Everything's back together. I drained out about 5 gallons of antifreeze. It wasn't the right kind of antifreeze. You got to have the red, the heavy duty for the big trucks. So I'll have to purchase some more antifreeze. Top it back off. Give it a test drive, check for leaks. But that's it for the O-rings, hopefully. The next thing on the list is going to be the slop in the power steering. Let's take a look at it. Tell you what, I'm going to put the phone down there, and I'm going to turn the wheel back and forth slightly. I want you to look for any suspension and steering components that are moving in ways they're not supposed to, or look loose, or about to come apart, you know, something like that. So let me do that. Okay, so I've got it on the driver's side right now. So what I want you to do is I'm gonna start the vehicle up, and see if I can get this in here a little better. The areas you're gonna be concentrating on is that joint there, and well, I'll tell you what, for right now, let's just concentrate on that. I can't get it all in the picture at one time, but keep your eye on it, okay? Want to see if it moves, you know, when it ain't supposed to, you know, holler at the guy. Alright, so we didn't see any movement out of that, which surprises me because that's a good one to for that bushing to wear out and get some slack in. So what we're going to look at now, we're going to look at this tie rod end right here. So while I'm turning the wheel now, keep your eye on it. You know, if everything turns together, that's good. But if you got one piece that turns a little bit before the other starts turning, there's too much slack in it. That's what we need to know. So holler out. All right, this is the last thing that I really know to check, and you guessed it. This is the passenger side. This is the tie rod end and the strut bar end. All this connects here on the passenger side wheel. Could be some slop in here, so all right, you know what to do. Well, as I suspected, I think we're looking at a power steering gearbox. We've already tried tightening, you know, the little adjustment screw in the top of the gearbox. There's a video on that I did on the 3/4 ton. So same setup as this 1 ton. It didn't really help on that one either. So at some future point, we're probably going to be doing a power steering gearbox on it as well. So on this one, since I'm getting ready to sell it, well, I'm probably going to end up buying a new, not rebuilt, new power steering gearbox. The rebuilt ones, they rarely replace gears. What they'll do is they'll break it apart and clean it, replace seals. If bearings are worn, they'll replace those, and then just clean it, paint it, and put it in a box. So I'm gonna buy a new one, I think. I know that A1 Cardone, I know that they have a new one that's it's pretty decent price as far as gearboxes go. I mean, you can pay $1,000 for one of these things. I believe the one from A1 is less than half that. I'm gonna do my research though, and I'm gonna let you guys know what I decide, what I come up with. Okay, so that's gonna be the end of this video. What we saw today was replacing some O-rings on a leaking radiator hose connection. Those are very common, very typical, and not a bad repair job. If you have a deleted truck to where you can get your hands in there easier. Also, you guys helped me diagnose the slop in the steering that we're experiencing. You know, if I looked at the video real close, and on the tie rod end on the driver's side, there's a very small amount of movement I can kind of detect there, but it's not what would contribute to the slack in the steering that we're seeing right now. It's pretty major, and so given that you guys helped me spot that, you know, there wasn't a lot of movement in any of the steering components, and the gearbox on this truck has already been adjusted about as tight as we would want to adjust it, and it had no effect on the wandering and, you know, on the road there. uh, I've ordered a replacement gearbox. I did order the A1 Cardone, with also a new pitman arm, because getting the old pitman arm off of this box, as long as it's been on there, and with the torque that you have to put one on, I don't have a puller big enough to get it off. So make your lives a lot easier. Those pitman arms are cheap. Buy a new one, put it on your new gearbox. And so that's what we're going to do. Those parts should come in, and we'll do a separate video on that. So I hope you'll join me for that. But in the meantime, have a good day. God bless, and remember, be kind to one another.